Hello, my name is David Asermely from ValidMind. Welcome to our webinar on operationalizing E-23 without slowing down AI. All right, before we start, we do have to kind of just do a little kind of highlight of ValidMind. Um, um, I am the VP of Growth Strategies at ValidMind. Our focus has and continues to be on AI governance. Obviously, E23 is pushing a lot of organizations to govern their AI in a specific way, and we'll be discussing that in detail on today's call. Very proud on some of the category wins that we recently have won from Chartis, including the AI governance platform of the year, and then model validation supporting tools of the year as well. So again, quick shout out to Chartis, and very proud of those awards. So when thinking about this presentation, obviously E23 is on the top of minds within the Canadian financial services arena, and one of the biggest challenges is looking at incorporating AI governance within under that umbrella of model risk. I've talked to corporations around the world on the AI governance front. The reality is most organizations today have many use cases, in some cases, hundreds and hundreds and even thousands of use cases that they have identified as areas of opportunity. But in many cases, those AI use cases sit on the shelf and are kind of waiting to be moved into production. And so I like this analogy of kind of stuck in traffic. The reality is AI is coming very quickly. We see new advancements on a weekly basis. And our focus again for today will be kind of how to pragmatically kind of unlock this stuck in traffic analogy, help you kind of move forward with your AI projects, but do so in a way that is that makes sense within the E22 framework, and also makes sense for your organization, your organizational structure. All right, I wanted to start with kind of a false trade-off and a kind of a false narrative that has been the reality for a long time, but with the emergence of AI, really is no longer an option. And when you look at kind of the overall kind of model risk landscape, there has always been this kind of reality to govern more models. You needed to you would need to hire more experts. It would take your organization more time to document those models, test those models, validate those models, and monitor those models. And that kind of approach, when applied in the arena of AI, in many ways falls apart. When we look at kind of AI in general, there is velocity is very important within your organization. It's not okay to get to take months to get your AI into production. It's not something that you're going to be looking at on a periodic basis to make sure that it's performing well. AI in many cases takes that framework that we have been using for all of these years, and it does flip it on its head. So with E23, again, there's real compliance expectations. Most teams, when they're looking at what that means for their organization, they're adding to what they already had, whether it's reviews, checkpoints. But the reality is this will slow down your organization in a way that simply does not work in this new era of AI. And so one of my focus areas that will be discussed today is embedding governance throughout the organization, not kind of adding different manual steps in this governance landscape. So I always like using some of these new AI tools to create these visuals that help get across different points. Um, this is I think this is the reality. You have this governance versus speed dynamic. And when you look over on the left-hand side, many organizations are looking at E-23. They're looking at kind of what they're doing today, and then they're adding to it to make sure that they're covering the requirements necessary for E-23 in general. And then, of course, that includes new things that are required on the front of AI. The reality is, by doing so and looking on this left-hand side, this will this in many ways does not scale to the degree that is needed within an organization. Again, you may when looking forward, there's potential for you to double, triple, or even 10 times the amount of models or AI that you're using today within the next very short period of time. And so using those same toll gates, using that same approach simply will not scale for your organization. And so what we have done at Valid Mind, and one of the points that I want to get across is kind of taking a step back, looking at what AI and model governance means, and then identifying opportunities for you to look at what you're doing today, and then refine it in a way that will scale in the era of AI. This is another one of those visuals that I do love. When you look here on the left-hand side, human governance capacity forever has been very linear. To govern more models, you needed to hire more experts. When we look at where we are today, the the exponential age of AI, of technology in general, you have AI that is updating their model version very frequently. All those systems, when those updates are required, need to be retested, not only individually, but also all the different use cases they're being applied to. And you're finding that your AI is being used at uh, a much greater rate. So we have this kind of this gap between what is happening from an AI adoption perspective, and then you have our historical model of this linear growth of the capacity within your governance team. Just taking a step back for one minute, and again, this is one of the slides that I do love. This slide the average IQ of of the human population. And if you look here, kind of where we are today, the slide's a little bit older, but our average IQ, today is, the average IQ of AI today is already at the very top end of the human population. And within a few years, that percentage, or that these curves for AI are moving very rapidly to the right. And so the reality is, for a lot of tasks within your organization, they are going to look at, hey, how can we use this almost unlimited intelligence, and how can we embed this within our organization? So we see this kind of divergence between the intelligence of humans and then the intelligence that you can buy off the shelf from numerous AI vendors. Again, if you look at this chart on 26, especially for the paid version, we're basically past the 0.1%. I know intelligence is not an easy measure to make, and there's different kind of perspectives of this, but at least for a lot of the tasks that are being done, the reality, again, AI is moving very quickly, and AI is actually coding itself in most cases. So this rate of change is dramatically, is moving very, very quickly. Um, one of the conversations that I've recently have had, and just looking out within a few months, typically your cybersecurity team may have to fight off a number of individual human attackers. What happens when a malicious, a swarm of malicious AI agents are trying to attack your company? The reality is to fight off those agents, to continue to be competitive with that the intelligence curve that I just showed you. Your organization's growth in the AI space has to keep up, whether it's to protect yourself from the cybersecurity, protect yourself on the fraud side, or just to be competitive and reduce a lot of the manual work that, again, AI has proven to be very good at. So what is our answer to help you kind of adopt AI to keep pace with the rate of change from the AI? And again, this is the divergence that we talked about before. The human capacity is linear. The AI, today is at an exponential rate. And so the reality is the way to govern AI and to keep pace with that rate of change, it requires you to include AI in the AI governance process. Of course, we want to make sure that the human element is included in AI governance, but it has to be done in a way in which you're actually also using AI and humans, and I call this AI governance teaming, in a way in which both of the human and purpose-built AI is there to help you govern the AI in tandem, and by doing so, again, allows you a chance to keep pace with the rate of change that AI is undergoing. Okay, I wanted to again, looking again at E-23, understanding where a lot of firms are in this journey, and wanted to kind of highlight, I think, one of the main challenges that many firms are encountering as they're going down this path of AI governance. So again, you have your model risk practices today. Um, when we look at what model risk has been, it's been manual reviews, manual documentation. There are controls that are defined typically after a model is built. Um, in the world of AI, it's not as isolated as model risk has been. Today, you are using a lot more data. There are risks on the cybersecurity side. There are risks on the fraud side. Um, there are really risks across your organization, and often with AI, there is a kind of an unclear ownership between those groups. I think the other kind of area that I'm going to hit upon is we look at getting, the life cycle of getting a model or AI into production. And if that process kind of remains the way it is today with all of those manual components, I think you'll find very, very quickly that it does not scale and won't fit or keep pace with what is happening with your competitors. All right. Again, I'll going back to one of these slides. So I always think of kind of the current state. So you have your AI models, your manual checkpoints, controls are kind of defined after the process, unclear ownership. And again, you just look at how outdated a lot of the MRM inventories are. It's because they require that manual editing on a kind of periodic basis to make sure that it represents the realities that are happening. When you go over on the AI side, um, for proper AI governance, you need to automate this as much as possible. You need to have controls that are built into the AI itself. So the AI is actually kind of operating in a environment in which its capacity is controlled and updated in a way that makes sense for your organization. So one of the things that we'll kind of flow through is showcasing a little bit of how and the best practice and how to do this. Many of you may have seen MIT had done a study in 2025. It was called MIT State of AI in Business. This was a very influential paper. I think it makes sense for you to take a look at this paper. Yeah, the premise and the conclusion kind of showcased why 95% of all AI projects at the enterprise level today are failing. And in the very kind of shorthand summary of it, when AI was added to a messy process, the reality was that it did not produce the results that they were looking for. And the cost of implementing and using that AI within that kind of outdated process was extremely expensive. And so you had in that paper this 95% failure rate of incorporating enterprise-wide AI within organizations. They did a deep dive on what were the 5% that actually succeeded, and the focus area was these were projects in which there was a lot of simplification of the process that happened first. So they re-looked at what was happening, they simplified it, and then they used AI within that new kind of ecosystem. And I think this makes a lot of sense in general, but I think when you look at what you're doing on the model risk side, I think this has a lot of clear lessons as you kind of plan and move forward. Okay, I wanted to again take one step back in the E-23 framework, and then amplify this message that I've been giving on the AI adoption. One of the kind of core principles is E-23 is a risk-based approach. And when you think of what that means, it means, again, that you're going to have, you need a consistent way of having your experts within your organization categorize and tier your AI into different categories, from your high risk all the way down to your low risk. And typically what happens is you'll have very few high risk models that are very important and risky to your business. And you want to make sure your experts are spending 80-90% of their time on those very high risk models. And then you're going to have a lot of lower to medium risk AI. The secret to real solid robust AI governance is to make sure that your experts are not spending the time down in these lower tiers of risk. And so again, just using the 80-20 rule in this slide, you should be using 80% of your human expertise up at the very top on the high risk models, and then you should be using 10 to 20% of their time focused on the low risk and medium risk applications. One of the important kind of concepts here to think around is, while these are low risk applications, the benefit to your organization may be massive in this area. And so if you have a lot of benefit and the benefit is low risk, again, from the E-23 perspective, yes, you want to move those into production. You want to have human oversight to it, but you want to automate as much of that life cycle as possible, again, from the documentation to the monitoring to the testing, and do so in a way that matches the expectations of E-23. So while a lot of organizations are kind of figuring out next steps, I always talk about having a framework in place to tier your models. And then once they're tiered, it allows you to have kind of two different pathways. One of them is the high risk AI. And this would be expert led. This is more human in the loop perspective. Um, Advanced validations and all those good things that your teams are experts at doing. But for your kind of lower to medium risk, you want as much automation over here on this side as possible. And so, look at your workflows, look at the things that you need to do to get those lower risk models or AI into production, and how can you streamline that as much as you can. And that does mean the documentation side. That does mean the ability to automate your testing and regulatory checks to make sure it kind of is meeting the expectation of E-23, and then the continuous monitoring around it. So again, I'm really a big proponent as you begin your journey on the AI side to look at how you can, first of all, consistently classify your AI appropriately to understand really what is the high risk and what is the lower risk. And then once there, allow you to kind of have these divergence paths that kind of enforce that risk-based approach to make sure your teams are spending the time kind of managing the risk at that higher level. Just want to pause a second. I know there is a chat feature over on the right-hand side. If anyone does have any questions, feel free just to hit that. All right. So what does it mean, what does this mean in reality? So one of the areas that I'll kind of get into a little bit of more detail is looking at how AI is going to be working for you, and then defining and building in controls directly into the AI itself or within the AI kind of ecosystem. So this is not something where you want to wake up in the morning and see that one of your AI agents has gone rogue or has made some transactions that it should not have. Rather, you want to have controls built into the capabilities of that AI agent that will identify when things are going wrong, and then will shift the controls or potentially even turn that agent off until someone can come over and make sure that it kind of do a review before turning it on. There are a lot of other areas that we look at as far as templates, automating documentation, aligning your model risk, your AI governance, your engineering team, your data governance team, your cyber, your fraud. All this alignment has to happen. And then having a way in which the monitoring of those agents or those AI systems is done in a way that is appropriate for the risk level, and that also informs those controls that you have kind of linked to the AI that can immediately turn those AI systems off or can at least reduce their capability and make sure the harm done to your organization is limited. All right, so this is a slide that I've been using for a little bit, and it kind of just takes a little, kind of showcases a lot of what we have been doing to try to help you automate this model lifecycle. At the very beginning, we talk about your documentation templates. So in order to kind of gain these efficiencies that I've talked about, you should have kind of a library of these model document templates. So for high risk models, you may have a different template, low risk models, models that are used in certain parts of the business. Again, you're going to have a library of these templates that say, hey, for this type of model, for this type of risk factor, or this type of tier, here is everything I need to document regarding this AI. You then go through this process. I don't know if you can see it here, but there's a robot and a human here that are kind of working together, in which the documentation is done. And you can see these circles. These represent some of the automated tests. So you should be looking to automate these tests as much as possible. You should be looking at interpreting those tests and then documenting what they mean from an a developer insight perspective. And so as you go through this process in which the human and the AI are collaborating and working together, you end up with a full document that the template has been fully hydrated. It has all of the latest and appropriate tests that you have run, all of the results, and then all of the insights that have been documented around it. You then, at this point, should have what we call a checker that is going to look and kind of interrogate this fully document, this document that's been filled out, and it will do so in accordance to the E23 regulations or your best practices or a combination of such. So by the time this you kind of get over to your validation team, you were pretty confident that, yep, the document is done. We know the exact tests that the developer has done. We know the results. We've seen it fully documented. It's in a template that is familiar to us. And oh, by the way, also has met the expectations that have been set for E23. You then will do that same process from the second line of defense. So you can see here that you have your, again, same thing. You're going to be doing some automated testing. You're going to be comparing the developer evidence with independent tests that were run, fully documented, compared. And then as you go through this validation process, you want the ability to, again, recheck it for E23 expectations. You then want to look at what will happen from a monitoring perspective and be able to do that kind of same process that you set in motion from monitoring. For low risk models, as I mentioned in that prior slide, you almost want to have all of this automated. And if it is a low risk model, you want the system to pick out or suggest the right template. You want it to identify the tests that should be run. You want the AI to look at the results and document. You want the human to review it and approve it, which would be done through a workflow. But then you want to look at the outcomes and that final version of the document in light of the regulations that you're concerned with. And if this is a high risk model, again, same process, you still have the same capabilities, but you've streamlined this in a way in which the humans can review in more detail the outcome from the AI, and kind of edit and change some of that work, add new sections, etc. And then, of course, have that human in the loop on the monitoring side. One of the areas I wanted to give you kind of a real focus area. Many AI governance vendors talk about integration, and they talk about API capabilities. I've worked with a number of these organizations, and the reality is, when picking and either building or selecting a vendor in this space, one of the areas I always stress is to make sure that you're able to integrate seamlessly within with the modeling ecosystems that you are using. So this has been one of the kind of focus areas of Valid Mind. We're able to do this integration within a few lines of code. You're able to actually run the tests in that environment that you're doing the work. The results are then sent over and populate your documentation in a way that's very light touch. And again, you're not moving a lot of data around, but you have this in an audible record, and the results have been pulled from those environments. We've been working with a number of vendors like AWS and Databricks and others to make these connections as easy as possible. And by doing so, it allows you to really automate and streamline this process um, from an AI governance perspective. All right, I'm going to finish here on the operational model. So when looking at AI governance, I always, kind of stress that this is your system of record. If you have an AI system that is the kill switch has been turned on, you should be able to go to this central location. You should be able to see that the AI system has been turned off. And as a result of that being turned off, that AI should be disabled. It shouldn't be where you have to go 5 different places, or for one type of AI, you're going to Azure, another AI, you have to go turn it off at another place. Think of this as a centralized framework that also can centralize the controls, the control panel of AI across your organization. I want to make sure you have the risk tier really outlined and focused on. You want to have continuous monitoring in a way that can be done very frequently. And then again, it's important. The dashboarding is extremely important. You have a responsibility to your organization. You have executives that are going to want to know the realities on the ground. And when something happens and you need that information, it's no longer going to be okay to go do a deep dive, find out what went wrong, and then report up. You're going to need that information very, very quickly. Last 2 slides, a couple different LinkedIn posts that I recently have done. Again, kind of looking at where we have been from a model risk perspective and where we need to be on the AI governance side. One of the areas we're doing a lot of work here is this MCP protocol, model context protocol, that connects your AI governance inventory to your AI agents that are out there working. It's very important to have these two speak to each other, but not only speak to each other, but have the kind of limitations of this AI agent be tied to the realities of what's happening, and then inform we call it here the brain, of those realities. And when certain conditions are met, this AI agent gets turned off. So what this kind of highlights is, think of, you have an AI agent that is, kind of refunding payments to your customers. If for whatever reason this AI agent is not working well, you may have built within this protocol controls that will first recognize that the AI agent is not performing. inform your AI governance platform that then is that single source of truth. It's going to alert the right people of what happened, etc. And the switch that will change kind of the abilities of the agent are turned on, and then that then will get sent back to the AI agent, either disabling it or kind of limiting its functionality. So this kind of tying in real governance and real controls to these AI agents will allow them to work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, but to be doing so in a way that is kind of they're being managed. And the analogy I have here, if we're going to treat these agents as digital workers, this governance that we're talking about here is really the management layer for it. And that management layer assigns authority, it monitors behavior, and it has the power to revoke that authority instantly. So again, you're moving into a world where MRM has been more of a kind of a manual kind of approximation of what's happening from a model risk perspective in your organization, to one in which the AI governance and your platform has to be directly communicating with your business, with your AI agents in a way that kind of limits its capability. And then the other one that I've kind of talked here, there's been a lot of movement in kind of AI agents doing transactions. And it looks like these AI agents are not going to be doing transactions with, opening up bank accounts or using credit cards. They're going to be using stable coins. We recently have seen that stablecoin transaction volume now has overtaken MasterCard. So there's more transaction being done today on these blockchain stablecoins and than are being done by MasterCard. And we expect this to continue to grow. And so what is happening is these blockchains are building AI capabilities that allow agents to communicate and transact with each other. And so when you think of what this means from a E-23 perspective, what this means from an AI governance perspective, you are not only going to have to be looking at how these agents are transacting, but you're also going to have to understand the smart contracts that are buried in these smart contracts that are interacting with these AI agents. And you need to look at those in totality. And so this concept of verified finance kind of brings these two technologies together in a way that I think is going to be very dynamic over the next couple of years. There's actually a lot of conversation that's happening in the U.S. right now around stable coins and these transactions and limits. It's called the Clarity Act, and we expect that to potentially be signed within the next month or two. When that happens, I think you'll see a lot more discussion around AI and these transactions. And this, in my mind, is going to become a big part of AI governance in the very short term. All right. I do want to leave you with a very kind of short, set of next steps. The first, I would suggest, again, build your inventory and make sure that you have a very kind of consistent, logical, defendable way of tiering your AI. You want to make sure that you're mapping your E-23 requirements to each stage of your model and AI lifecycle and look to automate those steps as much as possible. So whether it's the model documentation, whether it's the handoff between the developer and the validator, whether it's the monitoring piece, where are you spending the most time? And then how can you automate those steps as much as possible? Again, I think when you look at where we've gone and where we are going, it is not okay to have a system that cannot be connected to your business and do so in a way that's very responsive, and that can not only be a governance layer but actually be part of how the AI is transacting and working across your business. And I do think as you kind of move forward, I would recommend, after you've identified those areas where there is an opportunity to automate, use AI in a way that can hopefully simplify and remove some of that complexity, and do so in a way that you can kind of pilot and iterate on that program in a way that ultimately can build um, knowledge through your organizational knowledge in a way that provides feedback, that will allow you to scale in a way, again, that's appropriate. All right, I want to thank everyone for the time today. Again, my name is David Asermely, and appreciate everyone joining. Have a great day.